I thought my wedding day would be the happiest moment of my life. I imagined the music, the vows, the cake, every detail perfectly in place. But instead of walking away with memories of love, I walked away with the image of my own sister, screaming, smashing my wedding cake, and calling me a liar in front of everyone I loved. Growing up in the rolling hills of Asheville, North Carolina, my family always looked picture-perfect to outsiders. Our home, a pale blue colonial with white shutters, stood at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac where kids played tag until the streetlights flickered on. My parents, Thomas and Marlene, were well known in the community. Dad ran the local hardware store, and Mom volunteered at the library. To neighbors, we looked like the model of a loving, balanced family. And for a while, I believed it too. My sister Jenna was just 2 years younger than me, and we were inseparable as kids. We spent endless afternoons climbing trees in the backyard, making forts out of bed sheets, and staging weddings for our dolls using Mom's old curtains as veils. We used to giggle about who would get married first, how we'd both stand as maid of honor for each other. I thought that meant we'd be best friends forever. By high school, though, our differences started to show. Emily, was the planner, the one who earned straight A's, joined the debate team, and dreamed of studying law. Jenna was the free spirit, bouncing from hobby to hobby, never quite finishing anything. While I stayed up late memorizing case studies, Jenna snuck out to parties. While I worked weekends at the coffee shop to save for college, she borrowed money from Mom and Dad for emergencies that often turned out to be new clothes or nights out. Still, I brushed off the tension. Families weren't perfect, I told myself. Siblings bickered, siblings competed. Deep down, Jenna loved me, and when the big moments of life came, we'd stand by each other. When I met Matthew in my sophomore year at Chapel Hill, that belief felt confirmed. He was steady, warm, and deeply kind, the kind of man who remembered the smallest details, like how I took my coffee or the book I left unfinished. He had a quiet strength that drew me in, and soon enough, we were inseparable. My parents adored him, and even Jenna seemed supportive at first. Emily finally found someone who can keep up with her, she joked during a family dinner, raising her glass of sweet tea like a toast. Everyone laughed, and for a fleeting moment, it felt like harmony. As our relationship deepened, I saw Jenna less often. She drifted in and out of jobs, moved into an apartment she could barely afford, and started dating men who came and went in cycles. Whenever she did show up for holidays, she was a whirlwind of stories, gossip, and drama. Sometimes she'd poke at me, "Must be nice being Mom and Dad's perfect daughter. Bet Matt never even sees you in sweatpants." I laughed it off, choosing not to bite. After all, what were sisters for if not a little teasing? When Matt proposed after 4 years, dropping to one knee at the botanical gardens where we'd had our first date, my world felt radiant. I called Jenna the next morning, nearly bursting through the phone with excitement. Her pause was long, too long, before she finally said, "Wow, guess everything always works out for you, huh?" I ignored the sharpness in her tone. "You'll be my maid of honor, right? Just like we always talked about." Another pause. Then, reluctantly, "Yeah, sure. Of course." I wanted to believe her hesitation meant nothing, that beneath her unpredictability, Jenna would rise to the occasion. I wanted to believe that this was the moment our sisterhood would come full circle. The months leading up to the wedding were a blur of planning, fittings, and deposits. Mom threw herself into helping me find the perfect gown. Dad walked me through the reception space, pointing out how he'd string fairy lights to make it magical. Jenna, on the other hand, was harder to pin down. She skipped dress shopping, missed 2 cake tastings, and texted excuses like, "Work got crazy" or "car trouble again." Matt asked gently one evening, "Do you think she's okay with all of this? She doesn't seem happy for you." I forced a smile. "She's just stressed. She'll come around. She always does." Because I needed that to be true. I needed my wedding to be the day where, finally, all of us would stand together, smiling, united. And in those months before, there were just enough moments to make me believe it. Like the night Jenna showed up with a bottle of wine and demanded we practice my vows in front of her, laughing until we both cried. Or the way she slipped an old childhood photo into my hand during a family dinner, whispering, "We've come a long way, huh?" False stability. Looking back, that's all it was. A fragile piece, balanced on thin glass. Because underneath the laughter, the wine, the whispered promises, cracks had already formed. Cracks I refused to see. And when the day finally arrived, Jenna didn't just step into her maid of honor role. She stepped into something darker. Something I never could have imagined. The morning of my bridal shower should have been perfect. My friends from law school drove in, my coworkers filled the backyard with laughter, and Mom had outdone herself with pastel decorations and a mountain of finger sandwiches. The sun dipped lazily over the oaks, and for once, it felt like everything was falling into place. Except Jenna. She arrived late, sweeping in with oversized sunglasses perched on her head and a flimsy excuse about traffic. Her dress, though beautiful, screamed for attention. It was the kind of scarlet silk that belonged on a runway, not at a casual backyard shower. People turned to stare, some raising eyebrows. I smiled tightly and hugged her anyway, ignoring the sinking feeling in my gut. "You look festive," I said. "Festive?" She smirked. You're the bride. I can't let you hog all the spotlight." I brushed it off with a laugh, even though it didn't feel like a joke. The first toast came not long after. My maid of honor duties had technically been Jenna's, but she'd insisted she wasn't ready to give a speech. Instead, my best friend Rachel filled in, offering heartfelt words about loyalty, resilience, and love. The group applauded, glasses clinked, and for a moment, the mood lifted. Then Jenna leaned in close to Rachel and muttered, loud enough for me to hear, "Funny, loyalty isn't exactly Emily's strong suit." Rachel froze. My chest tightened, but I forced a smile and pretended I hadn't heard. I told myself maybe Jenna was teasing. Maybe she didn't realize how cruel it sounded. But the comments kept coming. When I opened a gift from my aunt, an elegant set of wine glasses, Jenna snorted. "Guess you'll finally have an excuse to stop drinking out of mugs like a college student." Laughter rippled awkwardly, guests unsure whether to join in. I swallowed hard, cheeks burning. When Matt's mother handed me a delicate lace handkerchief, Jenna muttered under her breath, "Let's hope she keeps it clean for once." That time, a couple of friends actually gasped. I caught Jenna's eye across the table, silently begging her to stop, but she only raised her glass in mock salute. "Just keeping things real," she whispered. The rest of the shower blurred by in forced smiles and hollow laughter. When the last guest finally left, Rachel pulled me aside. Are you okay?" She was out of line. I shrugged, fighting the urge to cry. "She's just nervous. Weddings bring out the worst in people sometimes." Rachel didn't look convinced. "This isn't nerves. She's trying to humiliate you." That night, I confronted Jenna gently, hoping to smooth things over. "You hurt me today," I admitted. "Those comments weren't funny. They made people uncomfortable." She blinked at me, feigning innocence. "What? Oh, come on, Em. Don't be so sensitive. Everyone knows you're the golden child. A little teasing won't *LLU. "It didn't feel like teasing," I said softly. Her smile faltered for just a moment before she slipped back into her mask. "Relax. It's your wedding. Nothing's going to ruin it." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that the sister I'd grown up with, the one who held my hand during thunderstorms and whispered secrets under blankets, was still in there somewhere. That maybe the sharp edges were just her way of dealing with jealousy or stress. But deep down, something unsettled had already began to take root. Because the way Jenna had looked at me that afternoon, smirking, satisfied, almost triumphant, it didn't feel like teasing. It felt like the first crack in the glass. And once the glass cracks, it never goes back to whole. After the bridal shower, I kept telling myself I was overreacting. Jenna was my sister, and sisters fought, sisters teased. But as the weeks ticked closer to the wedding, her behavior only intensified, and I couldn't ignore the shift any longer. It started with small things. Missed calls. Ignored texts. She skipped 2 more dress fittings, leaving me standing awkwardly with Mom and the seamstress while her empty chair screamed louder than any excuse she might have offered. When I asked if she'd be at the rehearsal dinner, she sent a one-line reply, "Don't count on me. Busy." At first, I brushed it off as Jenna being Jenna, flaky, unreliable, floating through life with little regard for anyone else's schedule. But then came the rumors. One Friday night, Rachel called me in a hushed tone. I don't want to alarm you, but I was at the Grove last night, and I overheard Jenna talking to some people." My stomach twisted. "Talking about what?" Rachel hesitated. "About you. She was saying you're rushing into marriage, that Matt isn't who you think he is. That you're just desperate to look perfect, and you'll regret it." The words landed like knives. "She said that." I'm sorry. I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't heard it myself. I thanked Rachel, hung up, and sat in silence for what felt like hours. My chest tightened with every thought. Why would Jenna say those things? Why would she want to paint me as some shallow caricature to strangers? When I confronted her later, she didn't even flinch. "So Rachel's your little spy now?" "Figures. Did you say it?" I demanded. Her eyes glittered with something cold. "Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. But let's be honest, you are rushing. You've built this fairy tale in your head, and it's pathetic. Somebody needs to tell you the truth. The venom in her tone knocked the air out of me. You're my sister, I whispered. You're supposed to be happy for me. She shrugged, lips curling into a smirk. Maybe I'm just tired of living in your shadow. Those words clung to me like a curse. From then on, the tension became unbearable. Jenna began posting cryptic messages on social media, snide little quotes about false happiness and fake perfect brides, timed suspiciously close to my wedding updates. Friends sent screenshots with messages like, "Is she talking about you?" I stopped answering. The shame burned too deep. Even Matt noticed. One evening, he found me curled on the couch, scrolling through her posts with tears streaming down my face. "Why do you let her do this to you?" he asked gently, taking my phone away. "Because she's my sister," I choked. "Because I keep hoping she'll stop." He pulled me into his arms, but the doubt gnawed at me. Was I losing control of my own wedding? Of my own story? The isolation worsened when Jenna began reaching out to extended relatives. Aunt Carol called me out of the blue, her voice dripping with sympathy. "Sweetheart, I heard you and Matt are struggling," Jenna said. I cut her off, fury mixing with despair. "We're not struggling. She's making things up." But even as I denied it, I could feel the damage spreading like wildfire. If family believed her lies, what would they think of me on my wedding day? The worst moment came 2 weeks before the ceremony. I walked into the reception hall for a final walkthrough, only to find Jenna already there, chatting with the florist. She turned when she saw me, her expression unreadable. "What are you doing here?" I asked, unsettled. "Just making sure everything's authentic." Her gaze swept the room, lingering on the flowers, the table settings. "Wouldn't want you pretending this is something it's not." The implication sliced through me. I clenched my fists, desperate not to cry in front of the staff. When I got home that night, I collapsed on the bathroom floor, sobbing quietly so Matt wouldn't hear. The wedding that was supposed to be the happiest day of my life was beginning to feel like a trap, a stage for my sister's hostility. And the worst part? No one seemed able to stop her. Because every time I tried to confront Jenna, she twisted it back on me. Every time I sought comfort, someone would say, "Oh, she's just jealous, don't let it bother you." But jealousy doesn't explain the malice in her voice, the satisfaction in her eyes when she saw me unraveling. The isolation wasn't just physical. It was emotional. I was surrounded by people who loved me, yet I'd never felt more alone. And somewhere deep down, I sensed it. Jenna wasn't done. This wasn't the peak of her anger. It was only the beginning. The night of the rehearsal dinner was supposed to soothe my nerves, a final reminder that everything was coming together. The restaurant was filled with golden light, the scent of rosemary chicken wafting through the air, and relatives buzzing with excitement. Matt squeezed my hand under the table, his steady presence grounding me. For the first time in weeks, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, Jenna would let the wedding be about love and not chaos. But then she stood up. At first, I thought she was finally going to give a heartfelt toast, the kind she'd promised since childhood. I even lifted my glass, ready to receive her blessing. Instead, she cleared her throat, smirked, and said, "You know, it's funny. Growing up, Emily always acted like she was perfect. Always the smart one, always the favorite. But since we're all here, maybe it's time I tell the truth about her." The room went silent. Forks hovered midair. My blood turned to ice. "Jenna," I whispered sharply. "Sit down." But she didn't. Her eyes glittered with something sharp and cruel. "She's not who you all think she is," Jenna continued, her voice rising. "She lies. She manipulates. And you're all falling for it." Gasps erupted around the room. My mother's face drained of color, Dad shifted uncomfortably, and Matt stood halfway out of his chair. "Stop this," I snapped, my voice cracking. Jenna smiled, triumphant. "Oh, what's wrong, Em? Afraid they'll see the real you." I wanted the ground to swallow me whole. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear. But then, like a crack of thunder, Rachel stood up. "That's enough, Jenna," she said firmly. "We all see what you're doing." For a moment, Jenna faltered. But then she laughed bitterly, shook her head, and stormed out of the restaurant, leaving whispers and tension in her wake. I thought that was the end of it, that she'd embarrassed herself, and maybe, finally, she'd stop. But I was wrong. That was only the preview. The revelation came the next morning, when Rachel showed up at my apartment with a pale face and trembling hands. You need to see this, she said, holding out her phone. On the screen was Jenna's social media, her latest post already spreading like wildfire. Funny how everyone thinks my sister's wedding is a fairy tale. Should I tell them about her secrets? Or let them find out the hard way? Beneath it, comments were piling up. Friends, family, acquaintances all speculating. Some defended me, others asked questions, but all eyes were suddenly on me. What is she doing? I whispered, horrified. Rachel's voice was grim. She's building up to something. She wants an audience for whatever stunt she's planning. I sank onto the couch, my whole body trembling. She's going to ruin my wedding. Rachel didn't argue. The hours crawled by. Every time my phone buzzed, my stomach dropped, expecting another post, another jab. My parents called, confused and worried. Maybe it's just jealousy, Mom said weakly. But deep down, I knew. It was more than jealousy. Later that evening, Matt pulled me aside. His jaw was tight, his eyes steady. I need to tell you something. Last week, Jenna came to see me. My breath caught. What? She showed up at my office out of nowhere. She said you didn't deserve me. That you were selfish. That she'd be better for me than you. The room spun. What? Matt nodded gravely. I told her she was out of line, and that I loved you. But the look in her eyes, it scared me. She wasn't joking. She meant it. The revelation hit like a wrecking ball. All the hostility, the comments, the sabotage, it wasn't just about jealousy of my perfect life. It was about Matt. She wanted him. No, I whispered, shaking my head. That can't be. But deep down, I knew it explained everything. The bridal shower jabs, the rumors, the cryptic posts, none of it was random. It was a campaign, a build-up to something catastrophic. And suddenly, I realized the truth. Jenna didn't just want to ruin my wedding. She wanted to take it from me. The revelation that Jenna wanted Matt wasn't just a wound, it was a warning. If she had already gone as far as cornering him at his office, what would she do with an entire wedding audience watching her? I couldn't let her destroy everything I had built, everything Matt and I had dreamed of. So I decided to fight back. Rachel, as always, was the first person I called. I can't do this alone, I admitted, my voice hoarse. If she tries something at the wedding, I need backup. Rachel didn't hesitate. Say no more. I'll be there every second. She won't get the chance. Then came Matt. I debated keeping the weight off his shoulders, but honesty won out. She's planning something, I told him. She wants to humiliate me. Maybe even sabotage us. Matt's jaw tightened, but his eyes were steady. Then we make a plan. We control the narrative before she does. That night, we sat together with Rachel and a few close friends, the living room strewn with half-empty coffee mugs and crumpled notepads. It felt more like planning a war strategy than a wedding celebration. What are her we *P***NS? Rachel asked, scribbling furiously. Her words, I said bitterly. Her ability to twist the truth until people believe her lies. And social media. Then we cut her off, Matt said firmly. Phones away at the ceremony. No live streams. No one posts until after we're married. Rachel nodded. I can handle that. I'll talk to the wedding coordinator, make sure we have someone at the entrance collecting phones discreetly. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. But the bigger question loomed, what if she still tried to cause a scene? That's where Rachel's idea came in. If she speaks up during the ceremony, we don't let her dominate. We control the story. You stay calm, Em. You don't argue. You let her unravel herself. It was good advice, but easier said than done. My entire childhood had been spent dancing around Jenna's explosions, trying to pacify her before she detonated. But now, the thought of standing tall while she self-destructed, it terrified me almost as much as it thrilled me. The rehearsal the next day was tense. Jenna showed up late again, her eyes glittering with something cruel when she looked at me. She didn't say a word, just watched as Matt and I practiced our vows. I could feel the weight of her stare drilling into me, and I knew, she was waiting for her moment. When rehearsal ended, she sauntered up, her lips curling into a smirk. Hope you enjoyed your practice run. Tomorrow's going to be unforgettable. The way she said it sent shivers down my spine. That night, I barely slept. My stomach twisted in knots, my mind running through every possible way she could ruin the day, shouting during the vows, spreading rumors to guests, maybe even confronting Matt again. I lay awake in the dark, gripping the sheets, whispering to myself, she won't win. Not this time. The morning of the wedding, I gathered my bridesmaids for a final pep talk. This isn't just about me, I said, voice trembling but strong. It's about protecting what we've built. If Jenna tries to ruin it, we don't let her. We stand together. They nodded, fierce determination in their eyes. For once, I didn't feel alone. When I stepped into my gown, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. The lace clung delicately to my shoulders, the veil shimmered softly, but it was my eyes that startled me. They weren't the eyes of a woman afraid of her sister anymore. They were the eyes of someone ready for battle. The guests began to arrive, the air buzzing with excitement. I could hear laughter outside the bridal suite, the faint strains of music. For a brief moment, it felt like everything was as it should be. Until I caught sight of Jenna. She stood near the entrance, her dress an audacious shade of white that nearly matched mine. My chest tightened with fury. Guests were already whispering, side eyes darting in her direction. She smiled smugly, basking in the attention, as if daring me to call her out. Rachel leaned close, whispering in my ear. Remember the plan. She wants you rattled. Don't give her that power. I nodded, clutching my bouquet so tightly the stems nearly snapped. The ceremony began. Music swelled, guests rose, and I walked down the aisle toward Matt. His steady gaze anchored me, every step reminding me why I was doing this. Why I couldn't let Jenna win. But as the officiant began to speak, I saw her shift in her chair. Her hand twitched, her lips parted. The moment was coming. And for the first time in my life, I was ready. The officiant's words washed over me like background noise. All I could hear was the frantic pounding of my own heart as I kept one eye locked on Jenna. She was shifting in her seat, fidgeting, her jaw tight. It was only a matter of time. And then, like a thunderclap in the middle of a prayer, she rose to her feet. Stop, she cried, her voice slicing through the ceremony. Gasps rippled across the rows of chairs. All heads turned toward her as she stood there, defiant, her white dress glinting under the sun. This wedding is a lie. The officiant froze mid-sentence. My breath caught, my entire body tense as Jenna took a step forward, her heels clicking against the stone path. She doesn't deserve him. Jenna shouted, pointing at me with a trembling finger. You all think Emily's perfect, but she's been lying to everyone. She doesn't care about family, she doesn't care about truth. She's selfish, manipulative, and she doesn't deserve Matt. A stunned silence followed, broken only by a collective gasp when she turned her fiery gaze on Matt. And you, Matt, you're blind. You think she loves you? She's using you to cover up who she really is. My bouquet trembled in my hands. My body screamed to respond, to fight, to scream back at her, but Rachel's words echoed in my head. Don't argue. Let her unravel herself. So I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just stared at her, my silence louder than any rebuttal. The crowd's unease thickened. I could see whispers starting, brows furrowed, relatives exchanging uncertain glances. Jenna was seizing the moment, and if I didn't play this carefully, she could destroy me. You all think she's some angel bride, Jenna spat, her voice rising. But she's been a fraud her whole life. And now she's marrying into a life she doesn't deserve. If any of you knew the real Emily, you'd walk away right now. The air was electric with tension. I could almost hear the tightrope snapping beneath me. But then Matt stepped forward, his voice steady, clear, unwavering. Enough. The single word cut through the chaos. He turned to Jenna, his face a storm of disappointment and calm fury. You've been trying to sabotage this from the beginning. I told you once, and I'll tell you again. I love Emily. Nothing you say changes that. Jenna's face twisted, her composure cracking. You don't mean that. You can't. She's not good enough for you. Stop. Matt's voice thundered now, louder than I'd ever heard it. This isn't love. This isn't protection. This is obsession. And it ends today. Gasps spread through the audience again. Jenna froze, her eyes darting wildly, searching for someone, anyone, to back her up. But all she found were horrified stares and whispers of disbelief. Rachel rose from her seat, her voice strong and resolute. Everyone here sees the truth now, Jenna. This isn't about Emily being dishonest. This is about you, and your need to tear her down. You've shown your hand. The officiant shifted uncomfortably, clearly unsure whether to continue. The tension in the air was suffocating, all eyes locked on Jenna as she trembled with rage. I won't let this happen. she shrieked, her voice cracking. You don't get to have the happiness I never had. You don't get to win. She lunged forward as if to grab my bouquet, but two groomsmen intercepted her, stepping in between us. The sound of chairs scraping and gasps filled the air as they gently but firmly guided her back. Let me go, she screamed, tears streaking her face now, her mascara smearing. You'll regret this. You'll all regret this. The crowd murmured, shocked and unsettled, but there was no mistaking what had just unfolded. The mask Jenna wore her whole life had cracked wide open, and everyone had seen the truth. When the groomsmen finally escorted her out of the ceremony, the silence that followed was deafening. My chest heaved as I tried to catch my breath, the weight of the chaos still pressing down on me. Matt reached for my hand, squeezing it firmly, grounding me. We're okay, he whispered. She's gone. She can't hurt us anymore. I swallowed hard, fighting back the sting of tears. The officiant looked at us uncertainly, but Matt nodded. Please, go on. And just like that, the ceremony continued. But nothing felt the same. Every vow I spoke, every word Matt recited, every tear shed by guests, it all carried the shadow of Jenna's outburst. And yet, as I looked into Matt's eyes, I realized something powerful. She hadn't broken us. She had revealed herself. Her downfall wasn't my doing. It was hers. The final act of her sabotage had only proven what I had known deep down all along. She didn't want my happiness. She wanted to destroy it. And she had failed. The ceremony ended, but the echo of Jenna's outburst lingered in the air like smoke after a fire. Guests shuffled uncertainly toward the reception hall, whispering in hushed tones. Some avoided my gaze, others offered sympathetic smiles, but everyone carried the weight of what they had just witnessed. For a moment, I felt hollow. My wedding day, the day I had dreamed about since I was a little girl, had been hijacked by my own sister. I wanted to collapse into Matt's arms and cry until the world blurred away, but I couldn't. I still had to face a room full of family and friends. The reception hall glowed with fairy lights strung across the ceiling and candles flickering on the tables. The scent of roasted rosemary chicken mingled with laughter that tried, awkwardly, to return to normal. A DJ played soft jazz as the bridal party lined up for introductions. It should have been joyous. When Matt and I entered, hand in hand, applause rang out, louder than I expected. It wasn't just polite, it was supportive, almost defiant. Guests weren't applauding the perfection of a fairy tale wedding. They were applauding resilience, love, survival after the storm. As I sat at the head table, my phone buzzed relentlessly. Jenna's name flashed across the screen over and over. Missed call. Missed call. Missed call. Then came the texts, long strings of angry words. You ruined me. You embarrassed me. I'll never forgive you. I put the phone face down on the table. For once, I refused to engage. Instead, I stood to give a toast. My hands trembled slightly, but when I looked into Matt's steady eyes, I found my strength. Weddings aren't about perfection, I began, my voice echoing through the hall. They're about love. About commitment. About standing together even when things get hard. Today wasn't easy, but it showed me something important, that the people who truly matter will stand by you no matter what. Tears shimmered in my mother's eyes. Rachel raised her glass high. Guests cheered, the sound washing over me like a bomb. After dinner, as Matt and I danced our first dance, I felt the tension finally start to ease. His hand on my back, the warmth of his chest against mine, the rhythm of the music carrying us. For the first time all day, I felt peace. The chaos had burned itself out, and in its ashes was something even stronger, proof that we could weather any storm together. But the aftermath wasn't without consequences. In the weeks that followed, Jenna spiraled. Her social media posts grew darker, laced with bitterness and venom. She accused me of turning the family against her, of stealing her future, of humiliating her. But the family had already seen the truth with their own eyes. Slowly, relatives stopped responding to her. Invitations dried up. Calls went unanswered. For once, Jenna was alone. It hurt, I won't lie. She was my sister. I grew up loving her, protecting her, trying desperately to keep the peace between us. But now, I had to accept what I couldn't change. She didn't want peace. She wanted control. And when she couldn't have it, she chose destruction. One evening, weeks after the wedding, she showed up at my apartment building. I spotted her from the balcony, pacing near the entrance, her hair disheveled, eyes wide. For a moment, I almost went down to her. Almost. But Matt's hand closed over mine. Emily, he said softly. You don't owe her this. Not anymore. And I realized he was right. So I didn't go down. I turned away, closed the curtains, and chose myself for once. Months passed, and life began to settle. Matt and I decorated our new home together, filled the walls with photos from our wedding, the parts untouched by chaos, and built a space that felt safe, sacred. Rachel visited often, laughing over coffee in the kitchen, reminding me how far we'd come. One day, as I unpacked the last box, I found an old photo. Jenna and I as kids, wearing matching dresses at Easter, our arms around each other, grinning at the camera. For a long time, I stared at it, my chest tight with grief for what could have been. But then I tucked it away in a drawer. Some chapters aren't meant to be reread. Now, when I look back at my wedding day, I don't just remember the meltdown, the chaos, the screaming. I remember the strength it forced me to find. I remember the love that held me up when everything threatened to crash down. I remember that no matter how hard Jenna tried to break me, she failed. Because at the end of it all, I didn't walk away broken. I walked away married. I walked away loved. And I walked away free.